Unit 4. Focus on Comparison Contrast. Chapter 12. The Titanic and the Andrea Doria. Tragedies at Sea. Part 2. Listening. Page 79. A. Initial listening. Now let's listen to a talk about the similarities and differences between the sinking of two great ocean liners, the Titanic and the Andrea Doria. If you wish, close your eyes while listening. Just relax and listen carefully.
On the morning of April 10th, 1912, the luxury liner the Titanic left England on a voyage to New York. 4 days later, she lay at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. On Wednesday, July 18th, 1956, the ocean liner the Andrea Doria left Italy. The Andrea Doria was also traveling to New York. 8 days later, this great ship also lay at the bottom of the Atlantic. The sinking of these two huge ships, these two very, very large ships, shocked the world. Reports of these two tragedies filled the newspapers for days. When the Andrea Doria went down, people compared her sinking with the sinking of the Titanic. There were similarities between the two events. However, there were also important differences. What were some of these similarities? First of all, both ships were transatlantic ocean liners. In addition, they were also both luxury liners. They carried many of the world's rich and famous people. In fact, 10 American millionaires lost their lives when the Titanic went down. Today, millions of dollars worth of gold, silver, and cash may still remain locked inside these two sunken ships. Another similarity was that as each ship was sinking, there were acts of heroism and acts of villainy. Some people acted very bravely, even heroically. Some people even gave up their lives so that others could live. There were also some people who acted like cowards. For example, one man on the Titanic dressed up as a woman so that he could get into a lifeboat and save his own life. One last similarity was that both of these ships were considered unsinkable. People believed that they would never sink. I'd like to shift my attention now to the differences between these great ship disasters. To begin with, the Titanic was on her maiden voyage. That is, she was on her very first voyage across the Atlantic. The Andrea Doria, on the other hand, was on her 101st transatlantic crossing. Another difference was that the ships sank for different reasons. The Titanic struck an iceberg, whereas the Andrea Doria collided with another ship. Another contrast was that the Andrea Doria had radar to warn of the approach of another ship, but the Titanic was not equipped with radar. The Titanic only had a lookout. The lookout was able to see the iceberg only moments before the ship struck it. But of course, the greatest difference between these two terrible accidents was the number of lives lost. When the Titanic sank, more than 1,500 people died. They drowned or froze to death in the icy North Atlantic water. Over 700 people survived the sinking of the Titanic. In the Andrea Doria accident, 60 people lost their lives and about 1,650 lives were saved. One of the reasons that so many people died on the Titanic was that the ship was considered to be unsinkable, and so there were about half the number of lifeboats needed to rescue all the people aboard the ship. The Andrea Doria had more than enough lifeboats to rescue every person on the ship. However, they were able to use only about half of the lifeboats they had because of a mechanical problem. The passengers and crew of the Andrea Doria were very lucky that another ship was able to rescue most of them. The passengers on the Titanic were not so fortunate. It's interesting that the wreck of the Titanic was only found in September of 1985. Whenever there are large numbers of people traveling together on a boat, ship, or plane, the possibility of disaster is always present. Most people arrive safely at their destination, but accidents like shipwrecks and plane crashes do happen. And these accidents remind us that no matter how safe we feel, Accidents can happen suddenly and unexpectedly.